presentations on the old Belvedere Delaware Railroad. Between 1851 and 1871, it operated independently. It was originally backed by the Hampton and Amboy Railroad. And between 1850 and 1855, it built up along the Delaware River 65 miles from, Dan, can you say? Yeah, okay, good. Built 65 miles up along the Delaware River from Trenton, the capital, New Jersey, to this little town called Belvedere. And it was originally chartered in 1836, but a lot of hiccups here and there delayed the project until the early 1850s. And then in 1871, Pensy took over it. It became the Belvedere Division. It lasted as a really important line into the 1970s under Penn Central. A lot of coal trains, a lot of iron ore trains, a lot of regular trains here and there for the New England area. And Conrail screwed everything up and Belvedere. Half of it's now rail trailed. Other parts of it are out of service now. I've seen the train over a decade now. And only real remnants of it see freight once a week. Norfolk Southern's Portland Secondary, which they got in 1999 when they bought out Conrail with CSX. They run one train a week to Belvedere on Wednesdays, H76 or 74, one of those simple freights, to serve Hoffman LaRoche up in Belvedere, the PPL plant in Roxburgh, and Agway and Martins Creek. And they also run trains up there on other days for interchange with Delaware, Lackawanna, and Portland. All right, let's start. Now, I'm going to start with the structures on the Belleville. Okay. The infrastructure of the railroad. Now, the logical point to start with is Trenton, Barracks Yard. Barracks Yard was where the Belleville officially started. It was a freight yard that was built in the early 1900s, and it took away some operations from Lambertville Yard and Kent Yard. Kent Yard's the yard in Phillipsburg that the Belleville built. Barracks Yard was usually a major freight yard in Trenton up until Conrail, and then Conrail abandoned it in the early 80s. Some of the track is still there. It's all overgrown. The Northeast Corridor, we've seen in the background, the overhead wires, and the railway post office building can be seen right here. All this is gone now. The track is kind of still there, but it's big open field now. I was told that is a Studebaker of some sort.
Shane, can you sit down? Because we can't see. You're like right in the middle of the screen.
And this photo was taken in 1953 by famed railroad photographer John Diziapko. Now, the next structure that we stumble upon is the girder bridge over the Delaware Canal. This is right outside of Coalport Yard, which is another yard at the Belleville, built in 1856. We'll get to that yard in a little bit. This is where the feeder canal from Raven Rock Junction with the main canal from Trenton and New Brunswick, and the other little piece from Bordentown. Route 1 runs through here now. The girder bridge is still there, there's one track left. It's a double track girder bridge, and this photo was taken in early 1930s, before the canal was dried up. Billy, you'll like this. Here's MG.
The shack. Yeah.
MG interlocking block station was block station that kind of controlled the block section of the railroad in Trenton, at least up until Roberta, where WV was. It also doubled as a gate shed. This was the only crossing I think got a line with the gates. The rest of the line is like crossbucks or later crossbucks, if I'm not mistaken. MG gets its name from the crossing that's on Montgomery Street. And this photo was taken in the early 1970s by a railroad worker who worked on the belt called Bill O'Neill. MG was shut down in 1976 when Conrail took over the line. And the next structure we have a postcard of is this very beautiful railroad bridge over Parkside Avenue outside of Trenton, in the Cadwallader Park area. Now, this bridge was built in 1913 when Pennsylvania Railroad was dramatically updating the Belle with new bridges, new culverts, arches, trestles, what have you. Not only does it carry the Belle, it also carries the feeder canal, the Delaware and Arden Canal. That's why it's so wide. The bridge is still there. It carries the rail trail now for the Delaware and Arden Canal State Park. I date this photo around late 1900s, early 1910s. Now, directly after this, we have the little Cadwallader Park shelter. It was made a stop in 1851 when the first leg of the railroad was built from Trenton to Lambertville. It continued as a passenger stop up until 1931 when the stop was terminated. Since the 1920s, the Pennsylvania Railroad's been, they wanted to downgrade on the passenger service on the Belle. They eventually got away with it with the Flemington branch between Lambertville and Flemington in 1931. And the last passenger train operated on that line. Passenger service on the Belle continued for another 30 years, though. And this postcard is dated 1908. And the next stop after that I got a photo of is Scudder Falls. It's that little thing right here. You notice they recently replaced the rails right here. Scudder Falls, like Cadwallader Park, was instated in 1851 and closed in 1931. And that bridge is still there now. This bridge. It's now an access point for the state park parking lot, so people can bike on what is now a rail trail. And this photo was dated around early 1910s, I'd say. And that is the canal to the right.
How long is the trail?
32 miles from Trenton to Frenchtown.
Separate the two. You can follow both, and they separate in Trenton. Belleville and the canal are separate.
The only two portions that are actually officially a towpath. A lot of people tend to screw it up and say, "Oh, towpath." No, it's a rail trail. The only two sections that are officially, dubbed the towpath is the section of Lambertville, because the railroad wasn't removed there. They had the state park moved it to the other side. It starts south of Lambertville and crosses over the lock there, and then it goes back to the railroad side, north of town near the 202 Highway Bridge. The other section in Trenton for the towpath is Michael, you might know. There's a section where the towpath separates from the rail trail in Trenton.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the street that's closest to it, but it's not right at a street.
Yeah.
It branches away in the Belleville makes its way into a cut. It goes under Calhoun Street.
Yeah. Prospect Street. What's coming up next is WC Tower. Now, Richard Max, you sent me a very similar photo of this tower. The only difference was his photo had a canopy on the staircase instead of a guy and a dog tower. WC Tower was a little block of towers that were on the hotel. It also controlled the double pass segment. It started directly below Washington Crossing. And classes was on the high end, so it's in the tracks. In 1930, the tower was closed. Particular GW block limit was established in Washington's Crossing, and that, of course, that's a consumption base. This photos from my collection. And then after that, we have the original Washington's Crossing station. This station was built in 1850, one official passenger service for that. I would say this photo was taken in 1920s. Count that doodle bug right over there. Doodle bug started to use the bell in the late 1910s, early 1920s. Some point before it was redesigned, remodeled, I should say, into this. Why? So here down here. Now this photo was taken in 1953 by Don Hensel. Yes. And he was riding a freight train. The station is still open. It's a passenger stop. That one is actually the passenger way to the train. And the station finally closed in 1953, and then it was knocked down in the mid-60s.
See, that's Don's RPO car. It's not a freight train. It's an RPO mail car.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. That's the picture I was trying to find. It's not going to be able to go.
Up next is the Titusville Station. The Titusville Station was also constructed. The Titusville Station was also constructed in 1851. Unfortunately, the station was torn down for its lumber in the early 1940s for lumber grades during World War II, and the shelter was placed at this location. The tall bar structure was also part of this. You can see the logo. And this is what replaced the Titusville Station. Little bus. The little shelter remained considered a passenger stop until 1952 when it was terminated. This photo was taken by Ed Weber. What's here now is a parking lot for the state park. All that's really left of the passenger stop is the old concrete platform. That's still there. And then about a mile or so north of that is Moore. Now, Moore was kind of a weird stop. It was mostly used by the quarry workers who worked in the local quarries or farmers. Now, judging by all the people in the dapper outfits in this world, I think it's essentially an event like the Belgrade was doing. It's easy to get like the 1920s. Moore Station was also closed in 1931. It was originally established in 1851. there had to be a bridge over the canal to access it. There isn't a bridge right now.
Shane, you got the flag signal on the top there?
I did see that. I did see the summer board.
The flag stops it. That's just to tell a train whether to stop or not. It doesn't control traffic.
Thank you.
There you
Up next, we have Lambertville Yard. These are the yard buildings. Lambertville Yard was established in 1864, and up until 1872, it built bucket locomotives for the Bell Bell, in-house construction. And in 1872, the Pennsylvania Railroad stopped all that and moved all production of locomotives to Altoona. The shops were still used for basic overhauls and rail car construction coaches up until the early 1900s. New facilities were trying to move more stable, and then that took away more importance from the yard. And it was still used for general maintenance, small running repairs, local classification, such. It's 1930 when Pennsylvania Railroad just moved up to the whole thing. But the yard tracks were still used for storage and classification of freight cars until 1937. In the early 1940s, a firm called American Gas and Propane bought the property. They became a railroad customer. They received tanker cars, propane and gas. In the 1950s, they became Northern Propane, and they lasted as a railroad customer into the 1970s. I think Blackford and Western for a few years served on it. They didn't last into the 80s. And the property now is owned by Lambertville Station Restaurant. They use the property to store their restaurant supplies in now. And this photo was taken in around 1909. And that's part of the Lambertville Historical Society in our collection. And here's the roundhouse with everybody that worked in Lambertville Yard around 1885. The workforce was considerably diminished when the new facilities opened in Morrisville, but about 75 people were still kept at the yard. 75, 70, up until 20s, and then 15 people, and then about maybe 25 into the 30s, and then the yard got destroyed in 1937 or 1938, and the yard finally closed for good. There was not really anything left of the roundhouse, unfortunately. Part of it was knocked down in the mid-1910s, and then the rest of it got knocked down in 1930 when Pennsylvania Railroad leveled all the buildings. And this is also part of the Lambertville Historical Society collection. Now, you might think, what the hell is this? This is actually the original Lambertville station. It was a house. And who lived there was Ashbel Welsh. Ashbel Welsh was one of the key individuals in the construction of the Bell Dell. Between 1851 and 1874, this was the Bell Dell station in Lambertville. Locals hated it. Said, oh, what an eyesore. So Pennsylvania Railroad tore it down and built the station that's there today in 1874. He built a new house elsewhere in Lambertville. I can't remember what street it's on, but the house still exists.
Wait, so after he built the station, what did this house turn into?
This was raised.
Oh, this is the
This
station.
is where the station is
Oh, okay.
at. And notice the lack of tie plates in the track. This photo was taken by H.A. Anderson and is oddly part of the Bucks County Historical Society collection. Here's what the station that's there now looks like. The 1874 structure that replaced the house station, it housed offices for the railroad, into the early 1970s, at least into 1973. The track department was still there, the signal department was still there, freight agent was still there. Passenger service at the station ceased in October 26, 1960, when the last train operated by Doodlebug 4658 operated between Trenton and Phillipsburg. In 1973, it was finally shut down by Penn Central and became like basically a gutter. It was abandoned for several years. And then in 1979, it was auctioned off. And then finally in the early 80s, it was restored and opened as a restaurant, what it is today.
Does the track still exist?
Oh, the track is still there. It's been out of service for a couple of years, until it's like the early 2000s. Black River and Western Railroad used to run passenger trains to Lambertville between Ringo's, Flemington, and Lambertville. And the last passenger train by Black River called here in mid-1998 when FRA demoted the track status to accepted, which means no passenger service. And between 1995 and 2000, there was like a whole track frenzy, a whole bunch of projects Black River was doing on their line, including a bunch of projects below Ringo's. And in 1998, they really got in full swing because when they heard the quarry north of town, Trap Rock, was going to reinstate their contract. Now, Trap Rock stopped getting service by Black River in 1993. They used to use them for ballast. And that contract never came, and Black River walked away and put the line out of service. And only a handful of work trains ran down to Lambertville until 2003, when the line was closed. Now, luckily, though, I'm part of the group Black River Railroad Historical Trust, and since 2014, we've been restoring the line gradually, slowly, but surely, south of Ringo's. We just instated a track down to milepost 6 by Boss Road, which is a mile south of Ringo's, to Class 1 again. And another 2.5 miles is void of brush now. So, and we're hoping to bring passengers back to the Lambertville area again by 2019. And this photo was taken in 1962 by Norman Lippincott. Now, this was already 2 years after passenger service ended at the station, but Pennsylvania Railroad was still using it for offices. Now, this little structure was a crossman shanty on Coryell Street. And the crossman was flagging, indicating a train is about to cross. Also note that there's 2 tracks. Now, originally, there was a double pass that started below Coryell Street, but then at some point in the late 20s, early 30s, they ripped up the second track below Coryell Street, and they moved up the double passing to north of Coryell Street. And that was the northern double pass. The southern double pass started directly below Lambertville Station, went all the way until it ended near. You guys know the Lambertville area. There's this thing called the Wing Dam, and I'd say the double passing, the southern one ended about half a mile. The northern one was almost 2 miles, over a mile at least. And this photo was also taken by A.J. Anderson, and this is also from the Bucks County Historical Society. And this photo was dated 1910. Now, by the 1950s, a lot of the crossings were already automatic bladed crossbucks. They did away with the crossing shanty thing at that point. Now, the next structure above here is FJ. FJ Tower controlled basically the junction point with the Bell and its Flemington branch up from Lambertville through Ringo's to Flemington. I believe it was first enacted in the 1870s when Pennsy came about. A lot of new state-of-the-art signaling practices first tested on Belleville. Like the Washington's Crossing Tower, WC, this one finally closed in 1930, and that was it for the tower. And you notice in the background, you see some hills. The Lambertville Pottery Company, that was a railroad customer, served via spur on the Flemington branch. And the next structure we have is Stockton Station. This photo was also taken in 1962 by Norman Lippincott. Now, at this point, it was a furniture store in 1962. But the station was originally built in the early 1870s by Pennsylvania Railroad to replace the Belleville's older structure from 1852, when the second leg of the Belleville was built from Lambertville to Tumble Falls. The station closed in 1958. Pennsylvania Railroad sold it quickly by 1962 to this furniture store. It's now a convenience store. Railroad track is no longer here. It was ripped up in 1980 by Conrail. The last train to actually run on these tracks was in November of 1978. It was a work train that Conrail was operating between Lambertville and Milford to protect a line of washouts and palm trees before the tracks were lifted in summer '79 and early 1980. And they were ripping the track up between Milford and Lambertville. They finally finished all that in '82. And the next structure we have is the old Raven Rock Station. Now, originally the station was called Bull's Island, but in 1890, I think, they renamed it Raven Rock. Raven Rock had a little run around. You notice this third track coming out. That was actually a quarry spur for Shanley's Quarry. Raven Rock is basically a quarry now. The station was established in 1852 when the leg to Tumble Falls was opened. Like Titusville Station, it was torn down in the early 1940s and replaced with this. This sad little thing. Now, this photo again was taken in 1953 by Don Wenzel. Thank you, William, for telling me about his RPO party, you said?
Yeah, he was a railway mail clerk.
Thank you. This photo was taken in 1953. This was taken a year after the shelter was terminated at the passenger stop, so by this point it's abandoned. In the early 60s, Pennsy finally knocked down the structure. What's here today is another parking lot for the state park. Now, all that's left of the only vestiges left of the railroad is the old concrete platform. Got trees growing out of it. The platform is still there. The next stop we have Byram Station. Now, originally this was called Point Pleasant until 1883 when they switched to the Byram to avoid the confusion with Point Pleasant, Pennsylvania. They didn't want to do that for legal school, but they did that for that. This was the old Byram Station, before the Oregon shed goes. And then, in the early 1900s, they rebuilt it. I don't really know the full story about this house, but it's gone. But this is like 1890s. Oh, my mistake. This is dated 1905, so this is, I'm guessing around 1990s. They picked up the house and this is the station. Made it bigger. Now, this station was photographed in 1945 by Ed Weber. It did stay in service as a passenger stop up until 1955, when it was destroyed in the Great Flood by Hurricane Diane. That same flood also wiped out the Byron Point Pleasant Bridge. All that's left of that bridge now is the stone stanchions. The station was never rebuilt. Another parking lot for the state park.
half and half.
No, it was all steel truss.
What was the one that was partial?
They did that for New Atlanta first. But I've seen photos of the Byron Point Pleasant Road where all of it was steel truss. It was probably like a quick fix they did.
It might have been the one from the island.
Oh.
Now, there are photos that exist of tumble falls and Kimberly stocks, but I don't have them. They look like, they look similar to this like a smaller scale version of Lime Street. It was like a glorified garden shed. That's what it was. Roxburgh, I do have a photo of Roxburgh, it kind of looks like that, that's what it was. Up next, we have Frenchtown Station. Now, this was the original Frenchtown Station. FN Interlock was located on the station as well as Frenchtown Station. This photo was taken in the mid-1940s by Stanley Zach, who is the father of well-known photographer Martin Zach. It was built in the early 1970s by this man Beldell's station. Beldell originally stopped here in 1853, early 1853, when the third leg was from Uncle Falls in Milford. In 1950, it was renovated and brought in. And then it became this.
So for one with the windows, you can tell line up. The windows are the ticket booth.
It's still the same building, they just knocked out the second story. And, really took the charm out of it. Now, passenger service at this station was continued at the station from October 26, 1960. And then it was strictly FN block station. Supposedly Conrail kept an agent there for a few years. Now, in the background,
Is that because of the paper mill that was up there?
no, that was Milford. They actually interchanged with Black and Western for a time after Conrail between Lambertville and Phillipsburg into 1978, before the Three Bridges connection was built. Three Bridges started construction in January 1977. They started construction of Three Bridges. And they opened that in March of 1977. Between March 1977 and November 1978, they began to work trains around here. And then they abandoned it. They in 1982. And then you can go for this photo was also taken by Norman Lippincott in 1962. It's been a lot of different things. A private residence at one point, someone lived in there. It's a bakery, it's a restaurant now. And I don't think did I mention this already that this these buildings in the background are Kurt Chicory's. They're a Grover customer. They sent chickadees on Grover. Up next is Milford Station. This replaced the older 1853 structure that Belleville built. It burned down, and then it was built in 1874. It's one of the only stone stations in the line. The only stone station over in Lambertville. The second story was built in the early 1910s, and that housed MD, the block station. It was built with mostly quarried stone. station was closed in 1955. Now it's photo. And this photo's from my collection. The next stop we have is Holland. Another glorified north ship, the canopy. You can see the grand double tracks part here. This photo was taken by Ed Weber in 1945. The stop closed in 1952. These are off the timetables. Holland was home to one of the longest double track portions of the railroad. I mean, I hiked it with you back in June.
The speeder park there.
The double track portion was operated by HD block station up there, and it was over 2 miles. And the second track was, of course, torn up by Conrail in the 80s. This was located south of the power plant, the Gilbert power plant. That power plant received coal by the railroad until 1972 when they converted to oil, and then at some point they just stopped using rail altogether. And Suzy Q Group is actually having trouble with that power plant. Power plant does not want the railroad back. They want to keep it out of service. I don't really know what the deal is with that, but they don't want rail service. They don't like the railroad anymore. And this stop was established in late 1853 when the fourth leg was opened from Milford to Riegelsville. It was 7 miles. 7-mile extension up to Riegelsville. And then we have this bridge. This is the older Musconetcong River Crossing Bridge. This crossed over the Musconetcong River, which is the border for Hunterdon and Warren counties. This is a pre-1913 photo. In 1913, they rebuilt the bridge, and they added a concrete decking over the steel trestle spans. And it made it easy for Pennsylvania Railroad to, do track maintenance that way. They didn't have to put special bridge timbers on the bridge. They just slapped regular ties over the concrete and ballast over the track. Many bridges were built like that on the Belleville. The Gachioke Bridge, Alex Offin Bridge. A lot of bridges were built like that. The bridge in Milford was built like that. Aki, those crazy names. And the bridge to the right was Old River Road, and that ran through the property of the Eagles paper mill, and that bridge is no longer there. Now, this isn't actually a railroad structure, but I thought it was a little photo. This was the old general store in Riegelsville. It was a Blue Knot store, an Esso gas station, a precursor to Exxon. This is around 1952. The water tower belonged to Regal Paper Mill. One of the eye-popping things in this photo is the crosswalk. That no longer exists. That's not there anymore, but there's an exact twin of that one in Stockton, in the Prowsville section of Stockton, near the Prowsville Mills, and that's still there.
Is that a little railroad shed for the
That is another crossing shanty.
Oh.
There's a stop sign there. You can see it's on the left. There's a stop sign that there's crossing guard reviews.
Good eyes, Don.
Yeah.
And right near here was the old Riegelsville station. I don't for some reason, no one really took a good picture of Riegelsville station. They just took these weird side views. This was the south side, and that house over to the left was the Boots Mansion. The reason it was called Boots Mansion is because there was a bar there for several years called Boots, and they're closed now. But, originally, the stop was called Musconetcong, named after the creek. But in 1876, they renamed it Riegelsville. I don't know why they did that. It would cause more confusion with Regal, Pennsylvania.
It's a really one New Jersey.
And this photo was taken by, I think this is an Ed Weber photo. He took in the early 50s, I think. And here's the north side. Passenger service was ended at the station in 1960. I think Pennsylvania Railroad used it for a few years, like 1963. It was a freight depot, and they closed it. And then it was burnt down by arson in 1969. Nothing's there now. All that's left is the foundation and the platform.
As an addition, Mike Margulies, historic preservation architect, has a plan to rebuild the station. They're looking for money for it. Yes, it's already been put out. They've gone to the Warren County Municipal and Charitable Conservancy Trust, but there wasn't enough money to allocate to that because there was existing historic structures that needed, including stations, that needed money. So historic reconstruction wasn't high enough on the priority list. But maybe one day.
The good news, though, the Suzy Q Group, the New York Susquehanna Western Railroad Technical and Historical Group, they recently got the track up to Class 1 code, just north of this stop. They do want to return service to Regal Suez. Black River Trust wants to return to Lambertville. They're not at this moment looking to return to Milford. That's like more of a long-term goal. That will be another 7 miles of long, tenuous track work until the track is not in good shape down to Milford. Now, I don't really have a good photo of Carpentersville, but a photo showing Carpentersville in the background will be shown in a little bit. So we're going to skip to Kent Yard. This was the repair shop in Kent Yard. Kent Yard was a yard originally built by the Beldell, but the Pennsylvania Railroad finished it in 1871. It was intended as a yard to transfer coal to the canal barges in the Morris Canal, as well as an interchange yard for coal trains that come off the Lehigh Valley to Tennessee. Now, as early as 1856, Lehigh Valley was interchanging coal trains with the Beldell, and the Beldell would bring them down to Coalport Yard in Trenton. They would transfer the coal over the Delaware and Rapid Canal barges in Coalport, as well as bring them to the cities of Philadelphia and New York City. This building, as well as the entire yard, was abandoned in 1976 when Conrail came about. And all track was most track. I think there's 2 tracks that still run in the yard. Almost all tracks and all yard buildings were demolished in 1982. There's nothing left of this now. This photo was taken in 1975 by Carl Jeffchen.
There's a narrow gauge.
Yeah, I was going to get to, there's the narrow gauge track. If you notice that coupler there. It was used by little parts to move stuff around in the yard. And that tanker car over there is filled with diesel fuel for the diesels.
So what's there now?
It's an open field, nothing. Now, Kent Yard also boasted a roundhouse. The roundhouse was built in a different style than Lambertville roundhouse. It was more of a Pennsylvania Railroad structure than a Beldell structure, having been built in the early 1870s. The roundhouse was at least kept until 1958 when it was knocked down. It was closed in 1952 when all steam was abolished from the Beldell. They still used the turntable though until 1977, and supposedly the turntable is still there. The foundation is the roundhouse. It's all that's left. This photo comes from the Phillipsburg Railroad historians. drives. And right near here was Port Delaware. Port Delaware was where Lehigh Valley and the Belle dropped off hopper cars of coal so they could transfer them to the canal boards in the Morris Canal. The Belle main line is seen right here at the Belle River, and that's Pennsylvania. This was also built in 1871. And it lasted into the early 1920s, and then all this was destroyed, and then most of the area became a landfill, and then the landfill was cleaned up, and now it's a park. Photo of the landfill becoming a little bit.
Shane, is that the photo that's the negative is inverted?
What do you mean?
Morris Canal should be on the other side of the Belle Dell.
No, this is the right photo.
I know there's one of them that's in Phillips Street. It's a famous photo that's inverted incorrectly.
This photo's taken correctly.
Well, where's the Morris Canal in this photo?
This is it. We're looking south.
We're looking south. Is that the main? Is there a main track on the other side of the canal? Now?
Yeah.
All right. Good.
This is the Belle Dell. And these are the coal docks for the
Right.
Belle Dell.
Trying to get my bearings there.
Now, this was Kent Yard was also accessed, as well as this, by Lehigh Valley Railroad's Port Delaware branch. That line was the line that cut through Mount Parnassus. Actually, the guy who took this was standing on Mount Parnassus to get the shot. And that was the line that connected. It was the line that connected Lehigh Valley main line with the Belle Dell to Kent Yard, as well as accessing the coal docks from Port Delaware. This is from the James Lee collection. James Lee was a whiz on the Morris Canal. And then here's our northern view. You see some hopper cars of coal on Port Delaware. You see the Plain 11 West powerhouse right here, the Morris Canal, and the CNJ and LV bridges crossing the Belle River. This is pre-1889. The LA Shore Bridge isn't there yet. In the early 1920s, the Morris Canal was abandoned, and this whole area became a dump afterward, and then it was cleaned up in the mid-80s, I think.
That plane was abandoned before the rest of the canal too. Plane 11 went out of service before all the others.
I think in 1894.
Yeah, it was an early one.
This is also from the James Lee collection. And then we have the bridge. The bridge above is actually the Belle Dell crossing over the Morris Canal. Morris Canal is kind of weird. It was kind of, parts of it were kind of built like a railroad. The rails were actually for these large wooden carts that carried the barges over what they call planes. This is Plane 11 West. And this was filled in the early 1920s. Some of the stone can still be seen, the old bridge for the Belle Dell. And this is also from the James Lee collection.
Didn't the original Belle Dell Bridge used to be covered too?
So it was covered.
Yeah.
Morris Canal came right through this. In fact, this was a canal then.
Yes, it did. In 1842, there were Scotch turbine-driven inclined planes. They upgraded them.
And then now we have the little Lehigh Junction Yard. Lehigh Junction Yard was a very small yard that Belle Dell built in I think the late 1860s. All it really was like a little roundhouse, turntable, carpenter shop, blacksmith, some storage buildings. The boxcar is wooden and says Pittsburgh, Chalmette, and Northern. You can see a train going over the CNJ. The LA Chart Bridge is already there. This photo was taken around 1905. You can see the rock cut through Mount Ida on the Pennsy side.
Shane, that's when we found that coal transfer shed on the far side. There was a switch off the CNJ that went into the river. And it actually went into that coal transfer shed. And the two towers at Mount Ida, Valley and Central.
Now, In the early 1930s, Pennsylvania Railroad was getting rid of a lot of things. They got rid of Lambertville Yard, Martins Creek Yard. They severely downgraded Monongahela Yard. They destroyed all the buildings in Monongahela, just left a few tracks. Belvedere Yard, the Lehigh Junction Yard was also destroyed in the early 1930s. The turntable was actually moved several miles down the line to serve as a road bridge to Belleville. A door in the little village south of Louisville. And it crosses into Belleville. Belleville is near Rockland. And this is the site where people get on the Susquehanna trains to provide partners from back.
So these bridges are still there.
Yep. This comes from Goldsbrook Railroad Historians Collection. Now, here is the Lehigh Hudson River Railway Trust. It was built 1889 by the Southeastern Kingsburg Railroad. This was subsidiary of Rolling Car. Still used today. Part of the Portland Secondary, reached Belleville, then Mark Street. This photo was taken around 1905. The strange thing with this photo is the top part is a piece of paint. I don't know what that's about. This photo also has the Goldsbrook Railroad Historians. And you can see another train crossing the CMJ Bridge. See that little seam over there? Here's the Grand Phillipsburg Station, Freight House. It's a 5-story building. It used to be called the Grey Ghost by some a Pennsylvania Railroad boxcar you can see inside here. This photo was taken in 1936 by Walker Evans. In 1950, Pennsylvania Railroad tore down the large tall structure that they kept this low lying structure here. It's a great house. Basically a passenger station. And passenger service ended at this stop in October 1960. LHR also shared the station. Up next we have Martins Creek Branch. This was built in 1885 to reach the Bangor Portland Railroad in Martins Creek, Pennsylvania, and then later Delaware, Lackawanna Western, and Lehigh, New England. Martins Creek, Pennsylvania was known for its quarries and cement mills. Martins Creek, New Jersey today is known as granaries. Norfolk Southern still uses this bridge today to reach Portland, interchange with Delaware, Lackawanna. I should see kind of safe as well. We're not there yet. Oh, I'm sorry, I think that's alright. Doesn't matter. Hutchinson was below Fell Drift. Hutchinson was my great grandfather. Now this photo, which comes from the collection of Richard Maxey, shows Roxburgh. Now this is kind of like Humble Falls and Kingwood, like this glorified garden shed. Roxburgh, you can see it up to the siding. The main track is here. Roxburgh was established in 1855, the final segment of the railroad was built, and Goldsbrook to Belvedere. And it closed along with the other smaller, less needed stops in 1931. And then up next we had Foul Drift Shelter. This served the small community of Foul Drift. like Carpentersville, Byron. It's kind of like a summer community that people went on vacation and now people live in. This stop was designated in 1855 and closed in 1951.
The term used in New Jersey for these camping areas along the rivers, colleges.
Oh, that's it.
Let me ask you a quick question. I noticed some of these curves are tremendous, super elevated. How fast do you run trains on this thing? Not very. They went pretty fast because they had track cams installed out at some locations. So they had to go pretty fast to get the worst people can.
Pennsylvania Railroad used to run some trains at 65.
Wow.
By the time Penn Central was around, they ran at like 40, 45. Still, Penn Central ran maybe at the max 50 miles an hour. But Pensy, they used to fly 65. And the Flemington branch was also trains used to fly not the two. That was the branch line. That was maybe like 55 miles an hour. Pay attention, William. Your tower's coming up. Alright.
Oh, yeah.
This was G Interlocking Clock Tower at Belvedere Junction. I love this sort of this track look here. G Interlocking was established when LHR came in, I think, the late 80s. It was originally on the hillside until a train smashed into it in 1913, and then they rebuilt it on the riverside in 1913. It closed in 1973 and was knocked down by none other than Conrail in May of 1976. The foundation is all that's left of the ground. In fact, there's a nice little year stamp on it. It says 1913 on it. And then we have Belvedere Station.
Is that a max?
This 1945 photo taken by Ed Weber shows Belvedere Station. It was originally built in 1855, and the structure lasted into 1966 when it was knocked down. It was restored many times by the Pensy, but there were never any additions built on it. There were never any downgrades like Washington's Crossing and Frenchtown did. And,
The other pass that the photographer's on, what street is that, do you know?
what, for the photos?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, like where was
This isn't a street. There's no street there. That's actually there's like a lumber yard and there's like unloading places directly behind the photographer in that picture that's still used.
The weird thing with Belvedere is that the line was elevated. There were no grade crossings at Belvedere. The line went over on bridges. This is actually a bridge over. I forget which road this is or street, but I think it might be Second Street or something like that. And of course, you get to see the old classic Pensy pipe railings right here. That they still exist there. They're still there.
But you know what I was thinking, Shane? It is the county seat. So isn't that a reason they would have a bigger station?
That's why it's big.
Yeah.
It was about the same size as Lambertville. In the service here actually ended in April 1952 when Stroudsburg, Philadelphia service via Belleville ended. It was used for a brief time in 1960 for a special steam train that the LHR operated, and then it was vacant and it was knocked down in 1966. Unfortunately. And then we have Belvedere Freight House. Belvedere Freight House it was originally established here maybe 1865, and it was rebuilt in 1950. And this 1961 photo by Bill Sosnowski shows the freight house. It lasted until 1985. By that point, until one of the railroad structure was used by some sort of feed and grain company, and then it was knocked down. And what's here now are townhouses. And up next, we have Pequest River Trestle Bridge. This was actually not part of the original Bell Bell. This was part of the Mononkechunk section they built in 1863, 1864 to reach the Warren Railroad at Mononkechunk. And I'd say this postcard is dated in 1910.
They actually operated a stagecoach service between Mononkechunk Station and
Before-
Belvedere Station
Before the
prior to
extension was built.
the station, yeah.
And up next, we have Mononkechunk Yard in all its glory in the early 1900s. It had a turntable. William, you have some track charts, I think.
Yeah, I'll show you. We'll leave them in later. That's what it looked like. In the glory.
Mononkechunk was the interchange point with originally the Warren Railroad, and then the Delaware, Lackawanna and Western Railroad, and was the northern terminus for the Bell Bell. The yard was, it was severely downgraded. It was mostly destroyed in the early 1930s along with Naperville, Martins Creek, Lehigh Junction, Belvedere yards. They still use the yard for little local switching. The last passenger train to run through here was in April of 1952 between Stroudsburg and Philadelphia, and then it lost even more importance after that. And then the flood came in 1955, August of that year, wiped out that section north of Belvedere. Pennsy decided to not rebuild, moved the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western interchange to Martins Creek, and it was never rebuilt, abandoned it officially in 1956. The Lackawanna, actually the old Warren Railroad line continued into the Erie Lackawanna era, and up until 1970, Erie Lackawanna ran train city here, and then they ripped up the track shortly after between Washington and Delaware, New Jersey. And this was the old Mononkechunk Station. It opened in 1864. Passenger service at this stop actually ended in 1903. It was moved over to Delaware. Between 1908 and 1952, the Pennsylvania Railroad operated via track and trace of the Lackawanna between this point and Stroudsburg at Gravel Place. Now we're getting into the Flemington branch. Now the Flemington branch was originally built by the Flemington Railroad Transportation Company. They also did horse and buggy between 1853 and 1855. It was pretty quickly the Bell Bell took over it. They didn't officially merge the company into the Bell Bell until 1885, but it was leased by the Bell Bell as soon as 1855, and then it was taken over by Pennsy in 1871, along with the Bell Bell, and then renamed the Flemington branch. And the first structure is the first Alex Saucon Creek Trestle Bridge from Richard Maxey's collection. This first bridge it still is there. It's outside of Lambertville. This is a pre-1918 photo. In 1918, they actually took out this bridge span and made it a lot deeper so it could hold up on the heavy strengths of newer locomotives. And this bridge is located just below the Route 29 crossing outside of Lambertville. The first stop outside of Lambertville on the Flemington branch was Alex Saucon. Alex Saucon was established in 1853, and in this 1920 photo shot by Theodore Husel shows a flagman at the shelter flagging a passenger train about to stop the station. The shelter was located directly south of the second Alex Saucon Creek Bridge. Notice the check rails. The stop was discontinued in 1931 when all passenger service on the Tennessee Flemington branch was discontinued. It was knocked down shortly after. And this bridge, the bridge that was right here, was this high wooden bridge. This mid-1890s photo shows the original Howe Bridge, located at the cross of the Alex Saucon Creek, right above Alex Saucon Shelter. The elevation of the line was a lot higher, and then in the mid-1890s, Tennessee downgraded the grade and rebuilt the bridges. This bridge was replaced in 1894, and then again in 1920, and that's the bridge that exists there now. It's a steel trestle, two spans with a stone stanch in the middle, and this comes from a collection of R.K. Stryker. Now, this little stop, Boss Road, this was located a mile below Ringo's. It was opened in 1854 when the line got to Ringo's, and then closed in 1931. The Blackford Western Railroad recently put track back to Class 1 status at this location, and we're really happy about that. The last train to really operate on this part of the railroad was in 2003. Last passenger train in 1998. As some of you know, Blackford Western Railroad is currently doing a project to restore the line to Lambertville for future passenger operations. Now, the station, Ringo Station, which is located a mile north. This photo was taken in the late 1960s. By that point, Black River was there. The station was originally built in around 1873. In 1883, a small addition was built on the northern part to extend the ticket dispatcher's office. Pennsylvania Railroad canceled all passenger service on this line in 1931, but they continued to use the station for freight until 1948 when they closed it. In 1964, Black River did a major restoration of the station, and then they reopened it in 1965, and we'll use it today. It's comprised of 3 rooms: the freight room, freight and baggage and such, the waiting room, and the ticket office. The freight room today is used by, these are a concession stand, gift shop, and that's also where you get your tickets now. The waiting room still pretty much functions the same. Ticket office, you don't get your tickets there now, that's just our office now, where the train master is, and that's where crews are called before the trains operate for the day. Now, Copper Hill was a stop just 2 miles below Flemington. It was opened in 1854 and then closed in 1931. It's another little train coming. There's virtually no sign of this stop now. And then we get to Flemington Station, and this building is still there, luckily. It opened officially in 1855, and until 1931 it was used for passenger trains. It was used into the early 1950s as a freight depot. The structure still exists, and this also comes from the collection of Arcade Striker. Right near there was Pensie's little two-stall roundhouse. You see one of the logos playing peekaboo. The Flemington Roundhouse was built in the late 1850s. It lasted into the late 1920s, and there's no sign of it today. This area was called Turntable Junction because this was the junction point with the CNJ's Flemington branch. The CNJ also had a turntable nearby. There's still signs of the little well for that turntable. This also comes from a collection of Arcade Striker.
That's Turntable Junction today.
Yeah. Now we're entering the steam era. Now, between the 1850s and the 1910s, a lot of 440 D-class locos around the Bell Bell. Pennsylvania Railroad brought in H9s and L1s for freight, and K4s and E6s for passenger, and B6s were used for local service and freight. Now, allegedly, the Raymond Loewy S1 was even tested on the Bell Bell in 1939. Supposedly.
Fantastic because there's lots of work there. To knock down all the obstructions so you get
We start at Coalport Yard. This 1948 photo, taken by Charles Knox Freericks, shows a B6 locomotive doing some local work in Coalport. One of Trenton's many ceramic plants, seen over here. As I mentioned before, Coalport Yard was established in 1856 for coal trains to come down from the Lehigh Valley in Phillipsburg. Coal originally was coming from the Balk Chunk Nesquehoning area, and then Pennsy made a deal with Wilkes-Barre and Eastern in Lehigh Valley to get coal from Wilkes-Barre and Scranton area. And into the 1970s, up until 1976, Penn Central was still bringing down coal trains down to Trenton, and then the power plants all along the Philadelphia, New York City area. Coalport Yard remained a busy classification yard until the Conrail era and was destroyed in the early 1980s. There's only one track that runs through here now. It's a little balloon track that connects the Northeast Corridor 2 miles outside of Trenton, and then eventually becomes Camden and Amboy Trenton, the old Trenton branch. Now New Jersey Transit's Trenton Camden light speed line. This 1870s era photo shows a southbound freight train running through Caterpillar Park. This photo comes from the collection of Arcade Striker. This section was double tracked. We come back to that B6 again that we saw in Coalport and Dixhaven. That's the feeder canal in the foreground. Dixhaven was another passenger stop on the Bell Bell. It's actually called Asylum because it was mental hospital there. And then they renamed it Dixhaven to make it sound better. And then that stop was established in 1851 and terminated in 1931. For some reason, Conrail kept Bell Bell from Coalport to Dixhaven in service in the early 80s. I assume there were probably some customer stuff. The section above Dixhaven to Moore was initially ripped up in 1979. The Dixhaven Coalport section was ripped up in 82. I don't know why they ripped that section. It lasted for 20 years. Next up, we have Washington's Crossing. This, let's say 1870. You see the original covered bridge over in Taylorsville, Pennsylvania, across the Delaware River. The double track portion is over here. Canal is over here. Can't really see it though. Then Lambertville. This L1 Pennsylvania Railroad, you see on the southbound train to Trenton. This order was taken to Victoria Street on the double track, the northern double track portion. The northern double track portion originally started below Coral Street, and they moved it around 1930 to start above Coral Street, and then it ran for a mile and a half, maybe a mile, and ended right below Quarry. The second track was removed in the early 1980s. The Lambertville Trenton portion of the Belleville saw its last train in March of 1976. It was the Penn Central freight train. And then it was that part of the line was abandoned in March of 77. The track was removed in 1979. Lambertville was kept because Black River bought the line in 76. They continued to serve freight in Lambertville until the freight business dried up until the 90s, and then passenger service until 98. Here we see another shot of the L1 in Lambertville. Now these photos were taken in 1949 by unknown photographers. We're taking a quick pit stop on the Flemington branch. You see locomotive 485 at Pringle Station in this mid-1890s photo. The cars on the left before the there were many different factories around the station over the years. And then we see locomotive 3014 and Flemington. And this comes from the collection of R.K. Stryker. And then we come to this 1907 photo shot in Brookville. Brookville is a little village just south of Stockton. It's actually part of Stockton Borough. But Brookville used to be its own village. This shows a southbound passenger train coming along the Belleville. The dirt road today is 329 River Road, which is paved today. This part of the railroad is rail trail now. This was taken about a mile below Stockton. We're at Stockton Station now. This mid-1880s photo comes from the collection of Carl Cathers. Passenger service ended in Stockton in 1958. Freight trains kept running through in the late 70s. Up until March of 1977, Penn Central ran regularly a weekly train between Phillipsburg and Haverfield for trains to Black River. And then between March and November of 78, only a handful of work trains were using the line, and then the track was removed between 1980 and 1982 between Lambertville and Milford. And then this became the Delaware American Canal State Park Rail Trail in 1984. Now, half a mile above Stockton was this other little town called Crowsville. Crowsville originated from the Crowell family, who start of the Charleston Mills. In fact, this is the side of the Charleston Mills. This photo was taken in 1950 by Frank Barry. This shows L1, if I'm not mistaken, crossing over the Wikishioki Bridge and entered Stockton. We go back into the 1870s to see this old passenger train, Raven Rock Station. At this point, it's still called Bulls Island. And Bulls Island had its own around track. This comes from the collection of Carl Travers. Next, we see Byron with a freight train crew. Now, most of them are freight. This early 1920s photo shows locomotive 1316 freight crew. Byron did have water towers. They were located south of the station, and there's no sign of them today.
Because the track can't do that.
The Byron.
That needed that, yeah.
Up next, we have Frenchtown. This shows the older station, the little local passing. And this comes from the collection of Hunterton County Historical Society, and this photo was taken around 1900. And then we come up to Milford. Now, this must have been some sort of special event to see all these capital gentlemen. Although it is the 1880s, not the passenger train. Note that that's a grist mill right over here. There's a railroad customer. And that grist mill still stands, but it's in really bad shape today. A local gentleman recently bought it and is trying to restore it into some he has plans for a restaurant there. And the locomotive is number 3028. This comes from the Milford Historical Society. And we see another shot of a southbound passenger train running through Milford. And then we come to Carpentersville. This is the shot that I was talking about. You can vaguely see the original Carpentersville station. And like Raven Rock and Titusville was torn down for its lumber and then replaced with shelter. The locomotive was 211, and this photo was dated in around 1906. The Carpentersville station was originally established in 1854 when the fifth leg was opened from Regalsville to Phillipsburg. The stop was closed in 1952. And then we have this double header H9s just below Phillipsburg by Warren Block Station. One of several telephone concrete huts right here. Those things could be found all in the Bell Dell. There's 3 in Lambertville, 1 in Stockton, the Brownsville area. There's like a really weird wide one that you photographed below Frenchtown. There's 1 in Milford. There's 1 in right above Regalsville. There's a couple in the river between Regalsville and Phillipsburg. There's 1 in Martins Creek, and there's 1 in Belvedere. Belvedere one actually we're going to be seeing soon. And here we see a freight train entering Kent Yards, passing Kent Interlocking Block Tower to the right. The weird industrial building to the left was Tibbet Wood. They built turbines into the mid-50s, and they were a railroad customer. You can see a yard worker walking up to the tracks. This comes from the collection of, this photo and the previous photo comes from the collection of Phillipsburg railroad historians. Here we see an H9 simmering at the Kent Yard Roundhouse. The homes along Howard Street can be seen to the left. This photo was taken around the 1930s. This comes from the Phillipsburg Guard historians. And then we go back into time to 1886 and see this old PRR logo, number 3009. And the old Kent Yard turntable can be seen in the foreground. And then we see a fabulous B6 with a passenger train going through Lehigh Junction, passing the carpenter shop, little track maintenance black bar, and a water column. You can see at the extreme right. This comes from a collection of the Phillipsburg Guard stones. Now, I thought this was an interesting photo. It's actually a return trip to Philadelphia from Stroudsburg. Originally, the locomotive was on this side. That's why the mail car and baggage car on the back end of the train. It's coming back from Stroudsburg to Philadelphia, and it's entering the Lehigh Junction Yard. And the CNJ bridge can be seen in the background. This late 1930s photo shows a K4 1985 crossing Northampton Street at Phillipsburg. This photo was taken by Stanley Zack, the father of Martin Zack. And a little bit of Phillipsburg Station can be seen at the right.
You see they severed the trolley tracks in.
Now, this is actually LHR, but another cool photo of a doubleheader. The Belldale main line can be seen right here. This northbound LHR train is traveling from Allentown to Maybrook, New York, passing G Interlochen at Belvedere Junction. Here we see another freight crew, mostly comprised of brakemen, at Belvedere and Belvedere Yard. Opened in the mid-1850s, it was mainly a servicing complex with general yard maintenance buildings. It was closed by the Pensy around 1930. Property later became Waddington Mill Corporation, a creamery, which became a railroad customer. Property is currently abandoned. Mike Helpings, who owns
My grandfather owns it.
His grandfather owns the property now. This 1940 photo shows a northbound passenger train traveling from Stroudsburg on through Belvedere.
Here's the group tanks at the far end of the station.
This photo and this photo were taken by Bill Snyder, as with this photo of an L1 hauling a freight. And that's that little concrete hut I was talking about. That still exists there, but it's been vandalized. Water column and the water tower gone. The footings for the water tower are still there. This was taken very close to Belvedere Station, and this 1940 photograph was taken by Bill Snyder.
Old interest is still there on the left-hand side, the same splash down.
Well, only the stanchions are there. This last photo of the steam era shows an old-time passenger train traveling from Menuntachum, crossing over the Pequest River on Crescent Bridge. Now we're entering the diesel era. Now, diesels were first introduced on the Belldale in the late 1940s. They were first RS1s, RS3s, first generation diesels. And then steam was abolished for good on the Belldale around sometime in 1952. Now, originally, RS1s and RS3s were the first to come on the Belldale. It started arriving in the late 40s, and then April 52. That's when passenger service above Phillipsburg ended. I don't necessarily think it's the same thing as steam ended. Steam ended a little later. Now, it was initially RS1s and RS3s, and then later GP7s, GP9s. PC brought in the GP20s, they wrote the York Centuries. GP30s, GP35s, GP38-2s, Alpha RS11s, RS5s. You get the point. So we start in full courtyard again. This 1970 shot shows northbound iron ore train GP30s, lead diesel 2208, about to take it up to Wolfsburg, into the Lehigh Valley. They take it back on steel. This photo was taken by Martin Zach. This is a really interesting photo showing Blackbird Western Railroad GE34 tonner 7079, it was 200, running near MG interlocking on Bell. The little switcher had some work done in Morrisville and was turned around. It's now headed back to Ringgold in this early 1970s photo taken by Nelson Howard. Now we show a 1966 photo taken by Martin Zach, showing RS11, 86, 25, and RS3, the southbound freight train crossing Montgomery Street in the heart of Trenton. And that's where MG is located. And then we transition to this color photo taken by Charles Hauser Senior, in 1969, two GP30s, lead diesel 2243 with a southbound coal train. There was originally a second track right here. It was there in '66. Martin Zach shot a photo near the area too, but it was recently removed. The bridge in the background belongs to the Reading Railroad. That was the New York division. The bridge today is used by CSX and SEPTA, and this part of the railroad is now rail trailed. Up next, we have this Martin Zach photo of RS11 8632 and an RS3 with a southbound coal train paralleling the feeder canal. This was shot in 1966, and this is around where the 95 highway bridge crosses over the Delaware River. He shot this over a road bridge crossing the canal. He also took this photo of a coal train traveling south on just below Washington's Crossing. This is actually a different train. This is being powered by RS11 8645 and RS3. But he shot it the same day in '66. And this is a rare photo of a doodle bug in Titusville in the late 40s, at which point the stop was at the shelter. Shelter is actually obscured behind the doodle bug. The stop was terminated in 1952. We go back to 1966 with this Martin Zach photo of RS11, two RS11s. The lead diesel is 8647, crossing Old River Road in Titusville. Note the old bell stand to the right.
Former signal, really.
It wasn't a signal, it was a bell stand that would activate when the track circle was tripped.
It's like Lander and the letter.
The last train through this area was in March of 1976. And that track was removed in the summer of '79. And then we get up to Lambertville and see GP30 2205 and another GP30 on the southern passing track. He's waiting for a southbound train to run on the other track. That's actually one of the crew members fishing in the Swan Creek.
Wow, it's still a long way.
Notice there's a large construction vehicle on a flat car right here. See about those big cars. And this little tank truck over here belongs to Northern Propane. You can see the turnout switch right here. It's kind of it's exposed a little bit. Northern Propane is still getting served by Penn Central, and this photo was taken in 1972. Now, in the early 80s, the southern passenger track was shortened. It was ripped. Most of it was ripped up by Conrail. Blackbird Western bought a little bit of it and shortened it to be a runaround track. And that is Goat Hill in the background. This November 3rd, 1957 shot of Doodlebug 4653 was taken at Lambertville Station. It was used as a special scenic excursion trip, I think by the National Railroad Historical Society between Trent and Phillipsburg. This photo came from the Lambertville Historical Society. Now we see Doodlebug 4658 on the last train on the Belledelle passenger service, October 26, 1960. And this also comes from the Lambertville Historical Society. This Nelson Tower shot shows Blackbird Western Railroad 44-tonner 7079 SW1 400 taking a Penn Central interchanged freight through Ringo's and Flemington. And then between, they built the second track, this little runaround outside of Lambertville on the Flemington branch in 1969. When the BRW bought the line in 1970, PC began interchanging with them at this point. And, Conrail used it for a few years, interchanging BRW until Three Bridges was the Three Bridges interchange was opened. And this runaround track lasted until 1997 when it was removed. And the crossing is Route 29, River Road. And now we get up to Stockton and see this GP9 with a snowplow rushing through snow weather that we've seen recently. This 1956 photo shot by Frank Barry shows a youngster right here watching a train go by. The last train to run through Stockton was in November of 1978. It was a Conrail work train, checking the line for washouts and fallen trees, and then the line was removed between Lambertville and Milford in 1980, 1982, and then turned into a rail trail in 84. We see this early 1950s shot of Doodlebug 4669 in a baggage car at Stockton Station. Service ended for Stockton at the passenger station in 1958. This photo was taken by Frank Barry. We move up to Raven Rock and see what Martin Zach dubbed exotic power. These are Baldwin RT624 center cabs. They mostly ran on the PRR old main line between Harrisburg and Philadelphia, but they were used on the Belledelle. This one's carrying up a northbound iron ore train for Phillipsburg. This was shot in February of 1966. This part of the railroad is now rail trailed. In 1971, Martin Zach shot PC RS1 7627 and RSD12 powering a northbound freight train from Phillipsburg. The track looks freshly ballasted, and brush beside the track has been recently cut.
RS11, Shane. RS1's are the little guys.
I said RS11 there, and the other D's is the RSD12. I didn't say RS1.
Oh, okay.
We come up to Frenchtown and see this Richard Maxey photo. GP 3226 is carrying a southbound train passing Frenchtown Station. Freight agent and block operator were still present at the station. Supposedly Conrail kept an agent here for a few years until this segment of the railroad to Lambert was abandoned. We come up to Milford in 1971. Milford Station is seen to the left, and that old grist mill to the right. Martin Zach caught the same train that he shot in Byram again, showing RS 11 7627 and an RSD 12 carrying a northbound train from Phillipsburg. This part of the railroad is now out of service, and it has been since 2003, when the paper plant in Milford shut down. We now visit Holland and show this Richard Polk photo.
Who?
No. And show 3 GP30s hauling a northbound freight train through the farmlands of Holland. He shot this in 1975.
Nice to skin.
Obviously, that's safe.
Very nice picture.
35.
Whoever the man is. Signed to track.
In 1969, Charles Hauser Sr. shot this photo of two RS-11s, lead diesel 7625 in the Keystone, crossing River Road above Regalsville. Like Titusville, and there was another crossing in Carpentersville. It had the unique bell stand. The Regalsville bell stand no longer exists, but the bell stand in Carpentersville exists, although it's missing its bell. A little switch shown here for the old runaround was supposed to exist in Regalsville.
Is that bell in your basement?
This is a very interesting shot of Least Power. Norfolk and Western F7s carrying an iron ore train through Kent Yard in the early 1970s. This comes from the Phillipsburg Railroad historians.
Now they're taking it up to the central. It's not Pensy Power. We go down to the yard and grab them and take them up to the central.
Oh,
That's our engine.
Yeah.
I think I believe you're right. I've seen that. How much was
there was no info for the photo.
I don't know. I'm the horse's mouth.
Bethlehem Steel was very generous and they let us share the traffic with the valley from the upper yard. So some of it would go up the hill to the Peaburg in the central, Allentown, and have to cross the bridge to Bethlehem a little backwards. But we got our money out of that. The other ones came straight up the hill in the valley and went up. So
It is 1964, and Charles Hauser Sr. shot this photo of RS 118634 and an Alpha FA. About to run down the Bell Bell with the south. A coal train can be seen to the right.
Where'd the pigs go?
The yard is no more. It was abandoned in 1976 and destroyed in 1982.
yeah,
That's the GA.
yeah, Alpha Jet, Yankee Jet, yeah.
This 1970 photo
There you go.
shows an iron ore train being taken to Bethlehem by the CNJ.
Right.
LV and CNJ took turns delivering the iron ore to Bethlehem Steel. This train is crossing the LV tracks. And this train was interchanged with DC at Kent Yard. What year is that one again? 1970. From the notes, it was taken by Dave Augsburger.
South of the hill.
It was taken by Mark Parnassus, and that's the landfill that I was talking about. That's built in Port Delaware. This used to be the Morris Canal.
So I had diamonds over the weekend.
Yeah. It was different at 3 a.m. That's how it sounds.
We now show this William Strausner photo showing an LHR train entering Phillipsburg on the Beldell.
He was aiming at the Frisco box.
Well, I'm not Ed Kaspersky. So, the CNJ crews had mileage agreements because they ran over our tracks. So this was Francie McManus, engineer, and Steve Boncher, rest in peace, fireman. And I'd get out of work at Peaburg Third Trick, and I knew what trains were coming, and I just rode down to the southeastern of Phillipsburg Railroad and wait for them.
2 Alco C420s with an RS3 sandwich in the middle take this train north to Mayville and Alco. The second track was ruined by Conrail in the early 1950s. You see another LHR train traveling the Beldell in the late 1960s. It's passing the PRR freight depot at this point. These PRR, connecting here on this. This shows the wooden produced trailer. This comes from my collection.
It's late 60s at the earliest. No way for it. Yeah.
In the early 1950s, this doodle book with a baggage truck was Phillipsburg with a baggage. This photo comes from Phillipsburg Road Experience. In 1966, this Alco S2 was seen pushing a local train north. It did not run it south. That's why it's got one. It's got the north.
They just fixed the crossing.
Crossing over Northampton Street. You now see 4 Alco RS3s headed north to the zinc train for Ogdensburg as track crews go on with the track project in Hudson Park, Southend.
Where do they get the zinc from?
Oh, it's an empty train. It's headed for Ogdensburg to load up and bring it to Palmerton, the zinc plant. Now, I suspect this was taken after the Great Flood of 1955. There actually used to be another track over here that just washed away in the flood. So I assume this was after August 1955. We probably dated late 55. No balance there. In 1969, A.W. Kovacs dropped this northbound LHR empty hopper train headed for Ogdensburg Sterling Hill Mine to load up and bring back zinc to the processing plant at West Hazard, Palmerton, Pennsylvania via CNJ. Wedgott Gap is seen further up. In the early 1970s, Bob Gottschall shot this PC oil train headed for Roxburgh Power Plant, Harmony. The lead diesel is 2203. Roxburgh actually took in oil and coal. They ended taking in coal in 2007. NS still serves Roxburgh. There's a photo of the PRR F3 with F3B and GP90 with the coal train across the Roxburgh Square Bridge. The bridge, the square was built around 1953 to serve the newly built Pennsylvania Power Plant, NCSR. This photo was taken in 1965. I'm assuming this was taken by a company photographer. Here's the caboose on that train. We reached G Tower at Belvedere and see the 420-26 leading the way. The Belleville PRR is the right. LHR used Belleville when it goes for a lot more than PRR here after 1955. In 1969, Kevin Berg shot some now PC GP9s crossing into Fall Street, Belvedere, coming from Hoffman the Road to Pharmaceutical Company. The towers of another railroad customer, Silenci, can be seen to the left. And that's the end of the slideshow.